I'm Peter Neyroud from the University of Cambridge, where I lecture on evidence-based policing, and I've been talking about diversion, so particularly police-led diversion from prosecution. There's been a long history of diversion in the UK, and in fact we've grown the process over the 180 years that the modern police service has been in existence. There were cautions in Victorian times, particularly for offences like prostitution. But what we've tended to do over that 180 years is grow things gradually, step by step, incrementally, without actually looking at whether particular approaches work, how well they work, and whether they can be made to work better and more consistently. And we've reached a point where there are proposals, and they've been around for 2 or 3 years, to make some quite radical changes to diversion. The question comes is whether we can do those by using evidence as opposed to our previous approach of just taking another incremental step. And this is a particularly good moment to do that. There's a lot of research out there on diversion, but a lot of it is very recent and UK based, which gives us a chance to reframe what we've been doing and to make it work much better. Starting with the best evidence, so starting with the experiments that have been done, and there are nearly 30 experiments internationally on different forms of police-led diversion, and then drawing those together into systematic reviews, and we now have 2 of those. One looking at the question from the point of view of whether formal processing, particularly of young people in court, works better than not, and the other one taking the reverse question: does police-led diversion improve on the outcomes from court? And the answers, I'll be pleased to learn, are consistent both ways round. Formally processing produces more harm, more offending, and fewer better outcomes, whereas police-led diversion has a significant effect on the reductions of reoffending and harm. So starting from that proposition, then looking in at the detail, why might that be the case, and above all, what sort of treatments applied how will have the best outcome? Well, the research has quite a lot of very good and clear lessons for us as we try and frame a new approach. The first of those is that you really got to be careful about getting the right offenders into the process quickly, because speed matters in this particular case, quickly and in a way that engages them as much as possible in the process, and also pays as much attention as possible to engaging victims, not in making decisions about what happens to an offender, but in for example, designing the treatments and being engaged in the process of being kept up to date and finding out how the outcome has finished. What victims particularly seem to like is that the police are making a really strenuous attempt to do something about offending. Diversion, therefore, is not just a passive process of a caution in a police station; it's an active process of applying tailored treatments to offenders that might have a better chance of making for better outcomes. But within that, the risks in policing are always about inconsistent treatment and not following through on what we expect. That means there's a huge onus on the service to track what it does. It's no good having treatments if you don't deliver them. It's no good going through the process of diversion if you don't follow up properly. And it's no good expecting to have outcomes from victims if you don't follow through with that final piece of information about whether the treatments worked or not. So tracking, an active process which relies on good supervision, good use of information, and good follow through is really absolutely essential. And then finally, in this field, as we make changes and as we develop, we really have to test that they are going to have the impacts that we think they're going to have. The experimental work up to now has been pretty strong, but that doesn't mean to say that when it's put into the field on a larger scale, that it might not have some slightly different impacts. So as we move forward, let's carry on with the testing, and particularly testing different types of treatment for different groups. So for example, there's a huge potential challenge for trying to find different ways of treating offenders with a mental disorder at an early stage of their offending career, and seeing whether we can divert them effectively. There have been quite a number of schemes that have tried it. They've always founded on the inconsistency of the approach and the inability to get treatments effectively to the front line. This is an important moment where the front end of the criminal justice system, the gateway into the system, could be fundamentally reformed, and we could apply evidence to make that better.